My childhood was tied to a small house, nestled beside vast fields, where family meals were more than just eating together. They were moments of connection, sharing, and love. Every morning, I woke up to the clattering of pots and pans and the enticing aroma of my mother's cooking. My mother, a petite but energetic woman, always started her day preparing breakfast. Despite the hardships of life back then, she always found ways to make our family meals hearty and warm. I remember the chilly winter days when my father would return from the fields, carrying the scent of soil and dry straw. The family would gather around a modest meal, braised fish, a bowl of morning glory soup, and a plate of pickled eggplants. Yet everything tasted extraordinarily delicious. I can still recall my father's gaze as he picked up a piece of fish, then placed it on my plate, saying, "Eat up, child. I'm used to salty food from the fields." I ate the fish, but it choked me with emotion. As I grew older, I realized that the piece of fish my father gave me was more than food. It was a profound act of love. As I grew up, I left my hometown to study and work in the city. There, family meals were replaced by hurried snacks, instant noodles, or sandwiches grabbed at street corners. At first, I didn't feel the absence, as the busyness of city life swept me away. One day, while cleaning my room, I stumbled upon a handkerchief my mother had embroidered with my name when I was young. Memories of family meals came flooding back. I remembered how my father used to tell life stories during meals, and my mother, always serving food for everyone, would remind me, "Remember, meals should always be shared, my child." But now, I was eating alone, with only my phone screen and lifeless news feeds for company. That was the first time I cried during a meal. I realized that a family meal was not just about eating. It was about connection with those I love. One day, I met Nam, a colleague at work. Admired for his success and confidence, Nam seemed to have it all. In a casual chat after work, I asked him, "Nam, do you ever feel lonely?" Nam gave a faint smile, his eyes distant. After a long silence, he shared, "As a child, my family was well off. My parents were always busy with work, so family meals were rare. I remember the only family meal of the year was on New Year's Eve, and even then, my parents were taking business calls. Over time, I got used to eating alone, but whenever I see others gathered around their families, I feel an emptiness inside." Nam's story left me thinking. Wealth and status, I realized, could never replace the value of a family meal. One weekend, I decided to return home. As I stepped into the house, I heard my mother's laughter from the kitchen, along with the familiar aroma of braised fish. My father, fixing an old table in the yard, smiled at me and said, "You're home. Go have a meal with your mother." That meal was filled with laughter. My father asked about my work, and my mother lovingly served me pieces of fish and meat. I shared stories about city life and my experiences, feeling like a child again, safe and loved. After the meal, my mother sat mending one of my father's old shirts while my father brewed a pot of tea. Watching them, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. As time passed, I started my own family and had children of my own. But the busyness of life sometimes made me neglect the importance of family meals. On some days, I could only manage to cook a simple soup and a few quick dishes before rushing back to work. One evening, my son suddenly asked, "Mom, why don't we eat together as a family often?" That question stopped me in my tracks. I realized I was repeating the very patterns that had once made me feel lonely in the city. From that day on, I resolved to change. I adjusted my schedule, made time to cook, and ensured that my family gathered for meals. At first, our meals were filled with short, awkward conversations, but over time, we began sharing more. Laughter returned, and I realized that happiness doesn't come from luxury, but from these simple, heartfelt moments at the dinner table. Now, having experienced the ups and downs of life, I understand that family meals are more than just a habit. They are a symbol of connection and love. No matter how busy life gets, I always remind my children, cherish family meals, for they are where love begins and where you can always return. Whenever I see children gathered around the dinner table, I see myself as a child, growing up in a world of love, nurtured by simple yet meaningful meals. Family meals are not just about eating. They are where love, sharing, and life's values originate. Through the stories of my life, I've realized that no matter how life changes, the value of family meals remains timeless. Take time to return to the family dinner table, for it is not just a place to eat, but a sanctuary of cherished memories and boundless love waiting to be shared.